I want the BBC to be a great place to work, a place where people come to do the best work of their lives. Anne's work will help us make sure that this is the case, and we'll publish our progress in full in July alongside our annual report. But there are some things we can commit to today. On whistleblowing, we will launch a campaign to do more to raise awareness of staff to what they can do and must do, and also where they can turn to for help. On child protection, we will work with the NSPCC to get their advice on how to help us build on what we're currently doing. And we will, as Dame Janet asks, commission another independent audit to assess our progress, to test our systems, to see how our policies are operating in practice. This work will report in the autumn, and whatever recommendations are made, we'll carry them out. But I also want to make a further commitment. I want the BBC to do more as a programme maker, following on the fine work in this area done in the past by Dame Esther Ranson with Childline. We will, for example, work with the National Association for People Abused in Childhood, NAPAC, to raise awareness of the issues surrounding abuse. On BBC One, we have already commissioned a documentary called The Abused. This gives the opportunity for many survivors who came forward as part of Operation U-Tree to share what happened to them. I want us to be a forum for a national debate about child abuse and how we can do more to support survivors. For me, reflecting on both these reports, the importance of getting the culture right in our organisation is key. When I came back to the BBC 3 years ago at a time of crisis, I could see that we needed to change. I visited teams from all over the UK who told me how proud they were to work for the BBC, how committed they were to the BBC, but they told me we needed to change. We have changed, we are changing, but we need to do more. Dame Janet says we should look carefully at 3 areas: a lack of cohesion in the BBC, the hierarchical nature of the management structure, and our attitudes towards the talent. These are all crucial issues, one we are thinking about already, and which we will push forward on in the coming months. We are, for a start, building a simpler BBC with fewer divisions, fewer boards, fewer layers between the top of the organisation and the front line, with senior leaders who are more visible, accountable and approachable, where we work together as one team for one BBC, with management that's enabling and supports creativity, management that demonstrates zero tolerance of bullying and harassment, where the values that all of us who work here believe in are the values we live day by day, and where everyone feels able to speak truth to power. These 2 reports tell me that the process we've begun of reforming this organisation must continue. And, as is well known, I'm already looking at the future shape of the BBC, and I'll have more to say next month. I want this to help managers to take more responsibility for their actions, and also to ensure the BBC is less hierarchical, less siloed, one BBC. We'll be helped by our independent director, our senior independent director, Dame Fiona Reynolds, who I've asked to advise us on this important work to ensure we live the values we believe in. Finally, I want to share with you Dame Janet's reflection when she handed me her final report. One of her aims has been to paint a vivid picture of Jimmy Savile, so we can all understand his modus operandi, which will help us learn lessons for the future. Part of that goes to the persona that Savile created and that the BBC contributed to, that he was the nation's favourite uncle, making children's wishes come true and doing a great job for charity. But, just as chilling, is what we see about how people responded to this persona, how they accepted it, how they failed to take steps to question it. And we must take note of Dame Janet's final words. She says that no organisation can be completely confident that it does not harbour a child abuser. Child sex abusers can be highly intelligent, articulate and charismatic, but manipulative people. That's why the biggest lesson for me is that we all have to be eternally vigilant. In conclusion, I would like to say this to the survivors of Savile and Hall. You have shown extraordinary courage in coming forward and telling us all what you went through. We are determined to honour your courage. We will learn the lessons from these terrible times. We will confront the issues head-on. We will continue to address them in an open and honest way, and we will be there for you. So over time, the BBC can be a stronger and better organisation, and we can help bring some closure to this dark chapter. That is the very least we owe you. Thank you. And before I take questions, please let me introduce Rona Fairhead, Chairman of the BBC Trust.
Good morning. I am saddened and appalled by the events recounted here. And in a few moments, I want to address how we will aim to ensure that they are never allowed to happen again. But our primary thoughts must be with the victims, the survivors of the abuse perpetrated by Jimmy Savile and Stuart Hall. Today's reports lay bare the full horror of what happened to them. Those experiences can never be erased. No one reading the reports can be in any doubt that the BBC failed them. It failed not just them, but the public, its audiences, and its staff. It turned a blind eye where it should have shone a light, and it did not protect those who put their trust in it. On behalf of the BBC and its staff, past and present, I want to apologise to the survivors for all they have suffered. I also want to commit to them directly that we will ensure the BBC does everything it possibly can to prevent any such events in the future. And I also want to record my thanks. We owe the survivors an enormous debt of gratitude for the courage that they have shown in coming forward to share their experiences, their horrific experiences, with the review team. Their bravery has created a vastly deeper understanding of the issues, and I am confident that from here forward, nothing will be the same. We believe that these reports are clear, thorough, and authoritative, and I would like to express my sincere thanks to Dame Janet Smith, Dame Linda Dobbs, and the review team. We accept the conclusions and the recommendations of their reports in their entirety. We have published both reports in full and unredacted. It is transparently in the public interest to do so. The survivors and the public have a right to understand not just what happened, but how it was allowed to happen. Who knew what and why processes failed. And to have the confidence that the BBC is taking all appropriate action. We need to ensure that the public's trust in the BBC is restored. We need to demonstrate through our actions that the BBC's values are for everyone and non-negotiable. For, as Dame Janet makes clear, these events happened in the past, but they raise serious issues that remain relevant and need to be addressed today. We fully support Dame Janet's recommendation that the BBC Executive immediately reviews its policies and procedures on child protection, complaints, whistleblowing and investigations, and that all of those should be independently audited and published. It is important that this work also takes account of the variety of working relationships the people have with the BBC, from freelancers and occasional contractors through to full-time members of staff. The plan that Tony has put forward today represents a thorough response to this recommendation, and the Trust will work alongside the Executive to ensure that the BBC takes all further steps that it needs to as quickly as it possibly can. Dame Janet also makes challenging observations about the BBC's culture. It is clear that the public expect the BBC to keep to the highest possible standards, but the BBC failed. And Dame Janet finds the status given to celebrities, the BBC's hierarchical structure, the lack of cohesion between its different departments present unique challenges which must be overcome if serious wrongdoing is to be exposed. The culture change that must take place has to be both substantial and permanent. The BBC must engage fully with its staff, listen to its critics, and submit policies and its culture to external scrutiny. I have discussed this with Tony Hall at great length and have no doubt that he is absolutely committed to achieving this. He also recognises that for change to be genuine and lasting, it requires the active involvement and support of those working within and around the organisation. The Trust will do whatever it can to help the management achieve this change, and if necessary, but we have had no need to date, to push them to do more or go further. These are long-term and deep-seated issues to tackle. But today's reports provide a clear impetus to do so urgently and openly. To that end, the Trust will continue to pursue these questions with the DG, taking stock of his and the organisation's progress at each of its monthly meetings for the remainder of the year. These events will forever be a source of deep regret and shame. Many people were failed by those who should have protected and supported them. Our commitment to the survivors and to the public is to ensure we do everything possible to prevent this happening again. Thank you.